ones for Create that are focused on electricity production. These mods are New Age and Crafts and Additions. Both mods represent electricity as forge energy, and as a result, allow for conversion between the rotation from Create and a form of energy that's used by many other mods. In this video, I'll be comparing the features present in each mod, and I'll also discuss the advantages that one might have over the other in different areas. Hopefully, I'll be able to help you decide on which mod is right for you. So let's get started by having a look at how these mods generate electricity. Alright, so in Crafts and Additions, electricity is generated by applying rotation to the alternator. So here I have some water wheels and they're producing 2048 stress units. They're only running at 4 RPM, and because alternators have a minimum required RPM of 32, I'm using the speed controller to increase that RPM. So if we look at it here, we see we're getting 45 forge energy per tick. So what that translates to, we send it to the electric motor, is we can get an output of 1,536 stress units, which is 3/4 of the input stress units from the water wheels. So in Crafts and Additions, we have a 75% efficiency rate of transforming rotation into electricity. And if we look at the crafting recipes, you can see that both the alternator and the electric motor need to be made using mechanical crafting, so they require brass. So these are not early game items. You need to go into the nether and capture a blaze to get a blaze burner to be able to make brass. So these are for the mid game and onwards. So over here we have a setup for generating power in Create New Age. So here we have generator coils spinning within some magnetic blocks. So this is magnetite, and this is the lowest tier of magnetic block. There are several tiers. So if we look here, we have magnetite all the way up to netherite magnets. So as to how efficient this is, well, we see with the same setup, we're only getting 19 electricity per tick compared to 45. So there's a different symbol. There's electricity here, and here we have FE. They are the same, as we'll see in just a bit. So here I am giving it a bit more speed, but I'm using the exact same amount of stress units. So in both cases, I'm giving them the amount of speed that they're adapted to, the amount of speed that will use up as much of the stress units as possible. So once we have the generator coil spinning within these magnetic blocks, we place some carbon brushes, and then we attach some connectors and some wire to connect the electricity to the basic motors. So in this case, we have an output of 19 electricity per tick, and we get an output of 650 stress units. So that's 650 out of the 2,000 that we're putting in. So that's a lot less efficiency than we get with the alternator from Crafts and Additions. So one thing in particular about the electric motor from Crafts and Additions is that the output is dependent on the speed. So if I reduce this from 24 to, let's say, 12, I get less stress units. And if I try to increase this all the way up to, let's say, 30, well, I'll have more stress units, though I'm using up a bit of the energy that I have stored up, and this is not sustainable. So I'll put it back down to 24 RPM, where we have an equilibrium, where we're using the same amount of electricity that we're putting into it, and we're getting out the same 1,536 stress units from before. Now, if we contrast that with the basic motor from New Age, we can crank this up as fast as we want. We have the same output of stress units, and we're using the same amount of energy. So this is one advantage of the motors from Create New Age. So this will always put out the same amount of stress units no matter the speed. So we've seen the lowest tier magnetic block from New Age. So how does that compare to the highest tier, the netherite magnet block? So first of all, this is really expensive. If we look here, it costs 4 pieces of netherite scrap, 5 overcharged diamond, which are basically just a diamond that you give electricity to. So they're really expensive, and we're only getting out 50 electricity per tick compared to the alternator from Crafts and Addition, which is giving us 45. So using netherite magnets only gives us a little bit more efficiency for a lot more cost. So in this case, I think the clear winner is Crafts and Additions in terms of electricity generation, if we're looking at it from a purely number standpoint. Though I think if you want to go for aesthetics, Create New Age does have this generator coil that looks pretty cool while it's spinning. So in the looks department, I think Create New Age is the winner. And something important to know about the motors in these mods is that they both have the same rate of conversion from forge energy to stress units. So what I mean by this is we have 45 forge energy going into this motor, and we're using it all, and we're getting 1,536 stress units. So if I take that same 45 energy per tick and give it to the motors from Create New Age and use up all that energy, I'm getting the same output, though I do have the ability to give it whichever RPM I want. So the motors from Create New Age are technically superior to the electric motor from Create Crafts and Editions. So the basic motor from Create New Age is limited to 128 RPM. The electric motor from Crafts and Editions can go all the way to 256. So there are higher tiers of motors in Create New Age, which we'll see in just a bit. But first, let's have a look at the maximum output that an electric motor from Create Crafts and Editions can produce. So here we have one that's taking 480 forge energy per tick. That's because we have it set to 256 RPM, and the output stress units are dependent on the RPM. So at maximum speed, we have an output of 16,384 stress units. So let's see how that compares to the motors from Create New Age. So here's the basic motor that I've used in my examples so far. This one's using 15 energy per tick, and it's giving us an output of 512 stress units, which is independent of the output speed. We have the next tier, which is the strong motor, and this one uses 60 energy per tick and gives us 2,048 stress units. An even higher tier is the reinforced motor, so this one takes 240 energy and gives us 8,192 stress units. There's also add-ons for the motors called extensions. This is the basic one, and this one doubles the amount of stress capacity. So this one gives us 16,384 stress units, which is the same as a maximum powered motor from Crafts and Editions. And if we look here, we're using the same amount of energy per tick. So this is further proof that both mods have the same rate of conversion from electricity to stress units. And finally, we have the strong motor extension, when if placed on a reinforced motor, gives us an output of 65,536 stress units for the price of 1.9 thousand electricity per tick. Alright, so we just saw the basics of how to generate electricity in both mods and how to turn that electricity into rotation using electric motors. There's still a lot of things to cover, such as nuclear reactors, Tesla coils, and a way of feeding liquid fuels directly to blaze burners. But first, let's have a look at how power transmission works in both of these mods. So both of these mods use wires and connectors to send the electricity to their destinations. So in Create Crafts and Editions, we have the concept of small connectors and large connectors. Those small connectors can only be connected to up to 4 other connectors. If I try to connect another connector to this small connector here, I get a message saying that the wire node is full. There's these regular small connectors, and there's also small connectors with lights, which have the exact same behavior. If I try to connect the wire, I get the exact same message. Here we have the large connectors. Now, large connectors are different in 2 ways. It can connect to up to 6 different connections, and it'll work. So here, if I try to add another connection, I'm going to get the same message. But there's also another limitation. There's also the concept of high current wires and low current wires. So if I try to connect these 2 large connectors with a low current wire like copper, I'll get a message saying that it requires a high current wire. So that means I need to use something like Electrum, which is a high current wire. So the name is a little bit misleading because it doesn't affect the amount of current or energy that can go through, only the amount of connectors and to which type of connectors it can connect. So high current wires can be connected to any kinds of connectors, but low current wires can only be connected to low current connectors. On the other hand, Create New Age does not have these concepts. Instead, they simply have connectors, and they seem to be able to connect to as many connectors as you want. So here I've connected a single connector to 24 other connectors. So if there is a limit, it seems to be a very high amount. Instead of a concept where a certain kind of wire can be connected to a certain amount of connectors, Create New Age has a concept of how much energy the wire can transfer. So copper wires, the lowest tier, can transfer up to 1,024 electricity per tick. And the highest tier of wire, which is the overcharged diamond wire, can transfer up to 8,192 energy per tick. So both mods have different concepts attached to their wires and connectors.
If I reclaim part of the river here.
Which mod is right for you. So now, let's have a look at the maximum length of the wires in each of these mods. So in Crafts and Editions, anything connected to a small connector or a small connector with a light can have a maximum distance of up to 16 blocks, no matter if it's a low current wire or a high current wire. So,
I just don't know if I have enough dirt to fill this in.
To a connector that's 17 blocks away, I'm going to get a message that says that the wire is too long. In the case of large connectors, we can go all the way up to 32 blocks. So if I go to this block over here that's 33 away and try to connect it, well, I'm going to get the same message. I'm going to get the message that says that the wire is too long. So 16 for small connectors and 32 for large connectors. Over here in New Age, the maximum wire length is 15 blocks. So if I go over here and try to connect this wire that's 16 blocks away, I'm going to get a message that says that it's too long. But wait a minute, it says the maximum wire length is 16 blocks. So didn't I just say 15 blocks? Well, the answer is because of how Create New Age measures the block distance. Over here in Crafts and Additions, the length seems to be measured from the middle of the block, which is more realistic since that's where the connector is. However, over here on the New Age side of things, it seems to add this other half block over here. So while the connectors in Create New Age are 16 blocks apart, they're really in the middle of each of their blocks. So there's an extra half block on each side that's not being considered. So both mods just have a different way of measuring the distances, which means that in Create Crafts and Additions, the wires can go up to 1 block longer. So that's why both mods say that the maximum length is 16 blocks, but on the New Age side of things, that the length is actually 1 shorter. And it just comes down to how each mod measures the distance of the wire. So before we move on, one last point about wires and connectors. So what happens when you have a source that's not giving enough energy for the destination? So let's start off by looking at how Crafts and Additions handles it. So here I have an alternator producing 45 forge energy per tick, and it's going to 3 motors that are each trying to pull 22 forge energy per tick. So how Crafts and Additions handles it is that it gives all the energy to one, all the energy to the next one until there's none left, and it just gives a little tiny trickle to the last one. So it does not split up how the energy is transmitted. So how New Age handles this is that it actually splits the energy equally between all the destinations. So here I have a source giving out 50 energy, and it's giving exactly 10 to each one. So these motors normally try to take 15 energy per tick, but here they're just taking 10 because that's all that's available to them. So there's actually another consideration to how Create New Age splits the electricity. So here all 5 motors are connected to a single connector. But let's say I give each motor on the side their own connector. What's going to happen then? Well, they're going to get the full amount, and the remainder will be split across the 3 that are connected to the connector in the middle. So what's happening is the carbon brush is actually first distributing the energy equally to each of its connectors, and then whatever's left over will go to each of the individual motors. So you might be wondering if this logic applies to Crafts and Addition. Well, let's see. If I place a connector and connect it to its own connector on the source, will it get split? Well, the answer is no. Crafts and Addition seems to prioritize whichever motors were connected first, or whichever motors are currently taking in energy. So for example, if I break this one and it runs out of energy and then I reconnect it, well, it's going to prioritize this motor here. So this motor will continue to get energy while this one here will be starved. And it's also going to wait for this motor to be completely charged with energy before it gives whatever's left over to this last motor. So personally, I find the way that Create New Age handles this to be more intuitive. It makes a lot more sense that the energy would be split in this way rather than the way that Crafts and Additions does it, where it gives to one, gives to the other, and then it starves the last one, despite the fact that they're all connected to the same connector. So let's move on to some non-electricity features, and this is one of my favorite features in any mod. This is just a straw. So what's so interesting about a straw? Well, we can give it to a blaze burner, and as you can see here, a blaze burner with a straw can be fed directly with a pipe. So no more setting up mechanical arms or deployers, worrying about filling up buckets. You can just feed the lava directly. So why shouldn't you anyway? Personally, I think that this is a feature that should be in vanilla Create mod. You shouldn't even need an item. Why would you need an item? There's pipes in the mod, there's fluids. You can already feed lava. So all it's doing is changing the way that you can feed the lava to a blaze burner. So I just think this is an amazing quality of life improvement, and it makes setting up steam engines so much easier. Another bonus that this mod adds is it adds 2 new fuels. It adds seed oil and biofuel. So there's simple recipes for making these, and it makes it so that you don't need to use just lava to feed your blaze burners. So seed oil will have the same effect of lava, and it'll have the normal burning animation. Whereas biofuel is a bit more complex, and it'll give you the blue flame animation, which means that the blaze is burning hotter and you can get more output out of your steam engine this way. So not to be outdone, Create New Age also has a way to heat your steam engines. So there's a concept that's called heat. So New Age adds heat, and one way of getting heat is through solar power. So to harness the solar power, you need to use solar plates. Now these only work when the sun is out and if they have a clear line of view to the sky. So here you see that this is generating 50 something temperature per second. And I have these pipes to transfer the heat, and what I have here is a Stirling engine. So we can bypass the steam engine entirely if we want to have a small scale operation. So this Stirling engine is being heated with 100 temperature per second, and we're getting 1024 stress units at a speed of 32 RPM. So this is a great option if you just want a little bit of power, but of course it only works so long as there are heat in the pipes. So if we want to heat a steam engine, we have to use the boiler heater. So what I have is I have multiple solar plates and I'm using the heat pump to send the heat to the boiler heaters. So these heat pumps, they work kind of like pipes, but you can send it in a certain direction so you can focus the direction of the heat better, and it's just a more efficient way of transferring the heat to the destination. So this steam engine is running with only the power of the sun. Of course, once it goes dark, or if I place blocks over the solar plates, it's going to stop running when it runs out of heat. The next feature is really neat. What if you want to store your energy? Well, you can do that with accumulators. Accumulators are basically batteries. So they are stackable like fluid tanks. So you can place individual blocks, you can put them in a 2x2 or a 3x3 formation. When you're sending electricity to these, just be sure to use the right type of setting on your connector. So it has to be pushed to push it in, and it needs to be set to pull it out. So just be sure that your connectors are set to the right mode. So Crafts and Additions actually adds a new redstone component. It adds the redstone relay. So currently I have energy coming in on this side here, which is the push side, and I have energy that can potentially come out on the pull side. Notice no energy is flowing right now. That's because it's not receiving a redstone signal. And if I flick this lever, the electricity will flow from one side to the other, and the motor will start running. All right, so up next we have the Tesla coil. So the Tesla coil is a deadly block. So if I stand here within 3 blocks and I flick this lever, well, I'll start to get electrocuted. Luckily, I'm in creative mode, so I'm not taking damage, but even in creative mode, I can't even walk. I have to just hop because I'm getting electrocuted, and I guess my legs don't work. So once I hop out of distance, I'll be safe and I can turn the lever off. So what happens if we place some mobs? We'll see how much damage it does right now, and we'll have a look at these poor pigs, and they're losing hearts very quickly, so this could actually be useful either in a mob spawner or to protect your base from hostile mobs. And the Tesla coil also has another use. It can be used to charge items from other mods with forge energy. This is simply added as a way to have compatibility with other mods. Crafts and Additions also adds a few items that are kind of miscellaneous. They're not really related to electricity or power production. So let's have a look at some of these. So we have some new cakes, the honey cake and the chocolate cake, and they behave exactly like the regular cake from normal unmodded Minecraft. Barbed wire is also added by this mod, so it'll slow down any players or mobs moving through it, and it'll also deal them damage as they cross through it. So if I place the spider here, notice that when he's not moving, he's not taking damage, but as he moves through, he'll take some more damage, and it deals quite a bit of hearts, so any mob moving through this won't last long. There's also a new tier of sandpaper added. This is diamond grit sandpaper, and it behaves just like normal sandpaper, but it has higher durability. The mod also adds the pale gold amulet, which makes the wearer basically invincible. Personally, I find this to be a little bit overpowered because the recipe is not that expensive. It just takes electrum and emeralds, which are not all that hard to get. Though I could see this being useful if you're playing with someone who's a bit younger and maybe not as good at the game and you want to play in survival mode with them. So this might be a way of accommodating a player of lesser skill while still being able to enjoy the game with them. So that's the last of the features and crafts and additions that I'll be showing in this video. Before we have a look at 2 full-powered steam engines that are both powered by and have energy extracted by elements from both of these mods, let's have a look at the last feature from Create New Age. So this is the nuclear reactor. The nuclear reactor is really just a big source of heat. So it does not actually produce any electricity in and of itself. What you have to do is you actually have to use that heat to power a boiler or some Stirling engines to extract any usable energy from it. To fuel the nuclear reactor, you have to make nuclear fuel. And to do this, all you have to do is find some thorium ore, which gives you thorium, and then you process that to get radioactive thorium. So the transformation process is quite simple. All you have to do is put some thorium through some crushing wheels, and you have a 10% chance of getting radioactive thorium. And once you have your radioactive thorium, all you need to do is press it, apply an iron sheet to it, and press it again, and you have your nuclear fuel. The nuclear fuel then needs to be inserted through funnel into the reactor fuel inserter. It then gets put into these reactor rods where the reaction takes place and the heat is generated. You then need to extract the heat using the reactor heat vents. From there, you just use heat pump and heat pipes and send it over to boiler heaters to dissipate the heat. But there's a few dangers to using nuclear reactors. The first is radiation. So you'll notice on this side I have reactor glass and a reactor casing. This will actually protect anything from radiation. So if I put a pig here, the pig will be unharmed. However, there's no reactor glass on this side. So I'm in creative mode, so I'm immune. But if I were in survival, I would take damage, and so would any mob here. You'll notice these mobs are starting to take damage. This is from the radiation. So just be sure that you have reactor glass encasing the reactor, otherwise you'll take damage. The other danger when it comes to nuclear reactors is having a nuclear meltdown. And a nuclear meltdown occurs when you can no longer properly dissipate the heat. So here we have the reactor rods, and you'll notice it says a temperature out of 26,000 degrees. 26,000 degrees is when the meltdown occurs. So you could have a meltdown, for example, if your boiler heaters were disconnected or if you just didn't have enough boiler heaters to dissipate the heat. So when you make a nuclear reactor, make sure you already have your heat dissipation system set up. And I'll show you what a reactor meltdown looks like at the end of this video. Now I'll show you how elements from both of these mods can be used to produce rotation and to transform that into electrical energy. So using elements from crafts and additions, we can fuel the steam engine. What we're doing is we're taking biofuel and feeding it to blaze burners with straws, and these are heating up the fluid tank to the maximum amount. We're then speeding up the output of the steam engine to 256 because the output of each alternator is dependent on the speed that we put into it. A full-size steam engine is capable of supporting 15 alternators, so each one puts out 360 forge energy, so if you multiply that by 15, you have 5,400 forge energy per tick. And then we can take that energy and either store it into an accumulator for later or use it immediately in whatever process we're trying to support. So using Create New Age, we can set up a nuclear reactor that's providing enough heat for this full-powered steam engine. You might have noticed that this reactor is different from the previous one I showed you. This reactor is larger, which means it generates more heat and it requires more reactor heat vents to extract all the heat from the reactor. I then set up a series of heat pipes and heat pumps to send the heat to these boiler heaters, which have given this steam engine enough heat to run at maximum power. So with the output of a maximum size steam engine sped up to 256 RPM and the highest tier of magnet in Create New Age, you get an output of 6,900 energy per tick, which is actually more than the output that we get from the alternators and crafts and additions. This slightly higher efficiency does come at a much higher price, requiring 4 netherite scrap and 5 diamonds for each 2 netherite magnets. So keep this in mind when making your decision between these two mods. Now let's see what a reactor meltdown looks like. I've destroyed the ability of this reactor to cool itself, and you see the reactor rods are now slowly increasing in temperature. So to sum up what I think about these two mods, I think that Crafts and Additions is the more effective mod. I think it's the more practical mod. So as we've seen, the alternators are very efficient compared to all but the highest tier of magnet from New Age, though you do require brass to make the alternator. The lowest tier from New Age, however, does not require brass, but it's very inefficient. And the highest tier, though it is more efficient than the alternator from Crafts and Addition, it requires an obscene amount of materials, making it a very late game item. I do prefer how electricity is spread out when there's not enough in New Age, however. I find it a lot more intuitive than how it works in Crafts and Additions. Crafts and Additions also adds the straw, which I think is extremely practical and is such a huge quality of life upgrade. I think it really should be part of the base Create mod. I do prefer the aesthetics from New Age, however. I think that the multi-block ways of generating electricity are more fitting with the theme of Create. I also like the look of the rotating generator coils. And on top of that, I think the nuclear reactors just have a certain cool factor to them. So these reactor rods are about to reach their critical temperature, at which point the reactor will experience a nuclear meltdown. So as you can see, when a meltdown occurs, the reactor rods turn into corium. Some of them will stay where they are and they will sink down into the ground. This one just turned into solid corium just now. The reactor heat vent melted and turned into lava. So one thing I didn't mention is in this mod, when things overheat, they can melt and turn into lava. So that's what happened to the heat vent here. So that's what happens when you have a reactor meltdown.
Interesting. Okay. Well, in this mod pack, I have crafts and additions. So that was kind of cool to listen to. Gosh, you can do some crazy stuff with Create.
The wait is finally over. Create Update 6 is finally here. So welcome to my video going over all of the new features added in Create Update 6 post-production. And I gotta be honest, this is easily my favorite update we've gotten so far. All of the new features work so well and really open up a whole lot of new possibilities with the Create mod. Now this update has an absolute ton of features that all mesh really well together and get really complicated as we go. So I'm gonna jump right in and show you guys a quick teaser of kind of where we're headed. Now, the whole purpose of this update is to add a whole new logistics system to the game where you can essentially request items and have them automatically collected from inventories and sent over to central locations or sent over to other inventories, and it gets pretty wild from here. You see what I just did there? That's not even the coolest part of this update. So the whole basis of this update really just starts with these little packages. Essentially what packages do is they take...
All right, that's... Add this to my watch later. Close that. Do I want to do immersive engineering next? Yeah.
Starting off with immersive engineering, you're going to be finding ores
Yavi!
buried in the ground,
That's what you
being
look like.
lead,
Nice.
bauxite, nickel,
Thanks for the face
silver,
cam today.
and uranium. And you're going to find these at a variety of different kind of the normal heights that you'd find normal ores. Generally all pretty much higher than diamond. The first thing you can make is the engineer's manual with a book and a lever. The engineer's manual has everything you need to know about immersive engineering, but you don't really need it because you've got me. So the first actual thing you're going to
we
make
got you,
is this
baby.
here, the engineer's hammer, and also the engineer's wire cutters. You will need the hammer to actually complete the multi-blocks that we're going to be building, and it's also really useful at making plates out of ingots, something that's going to be used in a lot of immersive engineering recipes. There are also some alloys in immersive engineering, and these are things like electrum, I believe, there's a few others, and you will also need to actually smash your ores into grit, as you see here. If we look at gold grit, you can see with silver and gold grit, we make electrum grit, which we can smelt up into electrum ingots. And that's how you can actually make your alloys as well. For the wire cutters, we're going to be actually cutting our plates that we've made with the hammer and then turn that into wires, which is how we're going to basically transport electricity around and also use it in a variety of recipes. So one of the few things that you're going to make very early on is treated wood. So how do we make treated wood? You can see here I've got wooden storage crates and wooden barrels, so you can input things from the top, like using a hopper. And there's these wooden storage crates. Now, as you can see, I've put my engineer's screwdriver in here, another tool you can use to turn
How old is this?
your
9
machines
months?
around,
Okay.
etc. If I broke this wooden storage crate, the actual things inside it stay. So you can use this as a
What?
chest.
Yeah,
You
this
can
is
stack on
old.
top of each other as well. And when you break them, the contents stay inside. So it's a really easy way, especially if you're actually in an adventure pack. You can use these to lug around lots of different items. You can
Oh
have
my
all
gosh.
different crates in your inventory full of loads of items.
Repair my shovel.
And another basic item is industrial hemp. Once
So,
these are fully grown,
21.
we can actually use them in a few things. Hemp rope coils.
20.3.
We can turn them into string. So it's actually a
Ooh.
way of growing string using the immersive
Spicy.
engineering mod.
So good.
And we can also make it into tough fabric, which is used for insulating our wires, which we're going to use for transporting electricity, and lots
Oh, actually,
of
you know what? I
other
wonder if
things.
it's a config option
Generally, the
that I
things in
can
here we're going to be covering in the intermediate video.
change
So,
the way the
first things
crates
first,
work.
How do we get or make treated wood? That is going to be in the coke oven. If I get my coke bricks here, which are made very simply, usually with clay, bricks, and sand in the middle, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. And they're going to fill all of this in. And the important bit is I'm going to get my engineer's hammer and right-click the center, which is going to make this strange-looking hole, should we say, in the middle. We can then right-click the coke oven, and it opens up the inventory. One thing I want to let you know about immersive engineering, if you see a little blue icon like that, that means input, and the orange one means output. I am simply going to put in here my coal, and you can put in blocks of coal. It will just take a lot longer. And slowly but surely, if you can see on the left-hand side, 8, 9, 10%, it does take a while. I would recommend making a few coke ovens if you can to make your treated wood. eventually, what you're actually going to get in here, as you can see, is coal coke. And we can use that as an energy source, same as coal. But what you're going to get as a byproduct is creosote oil, as you can see here. And what we're going to do with that creosote oil, we can simply put a bucket in the top, and it will output a bucket of creosote. And then to make the treated wood planks, or, you know, how we're going to make the treated wood in immersive engineering, is going to be getting a bucket of that creosote and just surrounding it with wooden planks. And that will make treated wood planks for you. And these treated wood planks are also going to be very, very useful for a myriad of different uses in immersive engineering that I'll be showing you shortly. Then, after you've been banging out your hammers into plates and then grit to make into alloys, maybe that's a bit boring. You're like, how can I automate this a bit more? Well, that's where we have the alloy kiln. You can see in here, I'm using blocks of coal to heat it, and I'm using silver and gold ingots to turn them straight into electrum ingots. What we can do with this one is simply go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, hit any part of it with our engineer's hammer, and then we have made the alloy kiln. You can see here we can make insulating glass, constant tan ingots with nickel and copper, and also silver and gold into electrum. You can't use the raw ores, you do need to use the ingots in the alloy kiln. Then we now have the crude blast furnace. And if you're wondering what does this do, well, this is how we make steel. So this is how we're going to get and make steel in immersive engineering. It's very simple. You're going to put iron. Well, actually, let me show you how to make it first. I am getting ahead of myself. So we're going to need some blast bricks. Again, generally very simple to make. You will generally need to go to the nether to get nether bricks and magma though. And again, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then if you right click the center with your engineer's hammer, ta-da, we have the crude blast furnace. In this one, you're going to put coal again in the bottom. No, that's a lie. We're going to put coal coke in the bottom. It must be coal coke in the blast furnace. And you can put iron ingots in the top. And that is how you make steel in immersive engineering. So this is actually going to make the steel in here for you. Now, this is quite slow, again, as you can see, and it cannot be automated. So what we can make is the advanced, or well, it's an improved blast furnace. Now, it's actually simpler than it looks. You are going to need to make reinforced blast bricks, which is using a steel plate with blast bricks. So once you've made your first lot of steel ingots,
but it's interesting.
What I would recommend is just getting your engineer's hammer and hammering the steel ingots that you've made in your crude blast furnace into steel plates. And then using those with the blast bricks you've already made to just deconstruct once you've got 27 steel ingots or 27 steel plates. Then just break your blast furnace and pick up the blast bricks, add the steel plates to them to make reinforced blast bricks. And again, as you can see here, it's a free by 3 that we're going to put on here. And then we can also use these blast furnace preheaters to heat it up and make it go even faster. And these are quite simply made of some iron sheet metal, which is iron plates, an external heater, which again can be made of LV wire coils. If you're not sure how to make those, it's copper wire, again made from plates, etc., with the tools I've shown you. And that's pretty much it for these items. It's actually a lot less intimidating than it looks. And once you've then got all of those, we're again going to get our engineer's hammer and just right-click on the center unit. You are going to need to have to power these. What I've done here is I've just put some creative batteries on top, again, from immersive engineering. However, over here, I'm showing you how to do it properly. We can use an LV wire connector
and gunpowder
with our battery or wherever it's coming from. And this is how you connect wires, okay? We use an LV wire connector, and then we just right-click the wire like an LV wire coil from each one that you want to connect. So if I actually take these LV connectors, I put one on here and one on here, and I get my LV wire coil, low voltage, and I just right-click and right-click, and it's automatically going to put power into the preheater. Of course, you can use whatever mod you like to actually input power into here. And then you can see the fan will be going if I actually put some iron in here. And you can see it here, it says here, preheaters are on the left and right, and you can see the little fan going there because these are powered. There's also some smoke coming out the top. you can put hoppers in the top, and you can input your coal coke and both your iron into the top here. And then out the back is where you're going to get your slag. This is another byproduct. You can see I've made some more here. Slag can be made into fertilizer or cooked up into slag glass, which you'll need for high voltage wire relays. You can use an extracting conveyor belt to pull out the slag from the back into a chest. And out the front, you can use an extracting conveyor belt to output the steel ingots. And if you want to use the entire immersive engineering mod to automate this, that is how I would do it. If you're not sure about conveyor belts, don't worry, because here we go with conveyor belts. So there's lots of conveyor belts you can make, as you can see here, with immersive engineering.
It's good now.
If I get a basic one, you can see when I place it on the floor, I can say which way do I want it to go. Do I want it to go that way? Do I want it to go that way? You know, this will just kind of go down that way. I can also use vertical ones, as you can see here. If you get the engineer's hammer, I can just shift-click, and that is actually how you make it vertical or not. Well, not vertical, but incline to go up to the next one. So if I place one here, you can see it's automatically going to connect as well. This is called a dropping conveyor belt. It's got a hatch in it, basically. So if I throw on this LV, whatever it's called, you can see, blop, it's disappeared. Oh my gosh, I've gone to another one. And that has gone into there. And that is with the dropping conveyor belt. There's a few we can use here. There's the vertical conveyor belt. Like if I put this on here, it's going to go up. And you can see it gets taken up vertically rather than at a slant. I have a splitting one. So I can put these kiln bricks on here, and it's going to split which way they go. So one that way, then one that way, then one that way, then one that way. An extracting conveyor belt does what you'd expect. It'll extract from the chest. So I can put this chest in here, and you can see it's then extracted out automatically. What else haven't I showed you in this little bit? Oh, yes. You can add dyes. So if I add white dye, well, it's not called white dye. Yes, it is. If I add white dye, I can just right-click it on these conveyors, just so you can see where your production lines, etc. You can colour them. We've got the redstone-controlled conveyor belt. You can see here, with the redstone-controlled one, if I add redstone or not, it will stop and start the conveyor belt. And then there's these covered versions, which you can make for all types of conveyor belts in immersive engineering. Just, you can't stand on them. Like, I can accidentally pick that up, or I can accidentally fall onto the conveyor belt, and so can the animals. There's a sheep over there somewhere earlier. With these, you can't, so it's much easier to kind of get around them. If they're in your way, you can use these versions. And you can see here some of the covered versions as well. The other thing I want to show you is item routers. Oh my God, go away. Item routers here. It is quite simplistic how these will filter items. We have our input here with the extracting conveyor belt. So items are coming in from this chest, creative accumulators, and then it's either coming out through the red side or the yellow side. East is yellow, red is north. Let's say I use my white dye, and I say I want it to go down this way, which is north. I'm going to just press that in there, left click it, so white dye is going north, okay? If I then put white dye in here, you're then going to see it will go north because it has been filtered. If I then change that off and put it in east, it's then going to go through east instead. Did I do that right colour? Yes, there it is, all in there. And that's kind of how you use the item filters. And you can use tags. You can say, do I want to filter item based on their tags, their MBT data, or damage? And what damage does is it says, will I ignore armor and weapon damage, etc., or not? Tags can be like forge ores. So I could use tags, and it would use the tags from silver, so it'd be like all ores. Any different kind of ores would go through, or not. So it's quite a simple sorting system for immersive. The last thing I want to show you is these item silos and fluid tanks. They're very, very basic. You can input from the top, basically, and output at the bottom. Item silos, you can put in loads of items. I think it's like the equivalent of like 100 chests or something, 64 chests, something like that. And then fluid tanks here. It's very simple. It's 4 treated wood fences. And remember, I showed you how to make treated wood earlier. And then leave the inside hollow like that. So for these fluid ones, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 at the bottom, and total hollow interior. And for the item silos, it's 6, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 on the bottom, and again you'll see it's a hollow interior apart from the very bottom, which is literally the ground and the top. That's how you make item and fluid silos for immersive engineering. Just to recap then, we've looked at the ores we can get and the basic tools we're going to use. Oh, I forgot something. I forgot to show you the engineer's workbench and how we're going to use blueprints. So not time to recap yet. So this is the engineer's workbench, very easy to make. And you can see in here we've got different recipes and we've got blueprints. So there's a few different blueprints. Some, like patterns, I can make, or components. The components blueprint is made in a crafting table with iron, aluminum, copper, blue dye and some paper, and that will make you specifically a crafting components blueprint. Whereas if I want to make the common projectiles one, it's the same with the blue dye and the paper, but I'll use gunpowder and an empty casing. And I can put that blueprint in here, in this little slot on the left of my engineer's workbench, and then you can see the recipes that can be made with it. If I go into this one, you can see here, iron mechanical components, which if I press R for immersive for JEI, you can see here it needs iron plates and copper
Normally
ingots.
I would
So I put in here
watch
iron
this on my
plates
own time,
and copper
but
ingots. See,
I
it goes
figured
grey, and if I put the resources in,
I'll
it
not
goes
watch
that.
it
I
with
can
you
just literally
all.
left click
y'all,
to pull out
everybody,
those
watch
recipes.
it with
And
you
I can
guys,
make a lot of different
you
things.
people,
If I add in copper plates and
because
durable
it's informative.
sheets, I can now make circuit backplanes. There's only 6 slots. I wish there was more. So if you do want to make lots of different things, you can see what they need here by hovering over them. Like a vacuum tube needs glass, nickel plates, copper wires, and redstone dust. If I put all of those items in there, then I could pull out vacuum tubes. And that is how we use blueprints. Some blueprints, like arc furnace electrodes, you can see here, I can't get a recipe for. They can only be traded or found in dungeon chests, is usually how it is. But those are going to be quite useful recipes to use in a lot of the things we'll be covering in the intermediate part of this video. So we've got storage versions here. We've got wooden barrels and wooden storage crate. There's also lanterns you can make from immersive. It's just a bit of glowstone, etc., and they're really nice looking. And there's also these posts as well. And what you can do with your engineer's hammer is right click which side you want the post bit to come out. You can only have them coming out one at a time, but then you can put lanterns or you can put wires, etc. on top of those, and it can look really quite nice. So we've got our storage, we've got our ores, our basic tools, our hemp, how to make treated wood using coal, coal coke, and creosote. We've got how to use and make alloys, how to use and make the crude and improved blast furnace to make steel ingots, how to transport power a bit, but we're going to go through power all in the intermediate part, and then conveyors and logistics, and also some storage as well. Now that we've got through the basics, let's actually look at how we're going to generate power. How are we going to power our machines, and how are we going to move that power around? The first thing you're going to see here is these accumulators. These are the batteries of immersive engineering. To show you an example, I'm going to use the creative one and then show you how we're going to move the power around from the creative one. So you can see here there's orange slots. I can change it to blue for input, orange for output, or nothing. I am going to be using the top side for this tutorial. Then I'm going to put my LV wire connector on. That's basically how we move power from A to B. Can't do a 3-step process from A to B to C, just A to B. If I then put an LV accumulator here, you can see blue again for input. Put one on top, get your wire coil, and if you see this here, LV wire coil. So you make copper wire, you then turn it into wire coil, and that is what you're going to use to transport your electricity. Low voltage, medium voltage, high voltage. That will electrocute you if you touch it. So you can use your tough fabric that you make from your hemp, and that will make an insulated version, which will not electrocute you. High voltage doesn't have an insulated version though. So I can just right click it there and right click there, and it'll join up the power. Because that is orange for output, that will output power from there, transfer it into here. And can you see the power is going in there? That is how you're going to power your machines. That is how you're going to transport power around. Maybe, though, we want to go from A to B to C. You do the same thing, output here, input here, output here, input here. But what if we don't want to do that? Well, we can use something called relays. So in this one, we're outputting, and it's going up to this relay using the posts I showed you earlier. A relay is what it says. It's to relay it. So I can then go from here to here to here, which is a transformer. But the good thing about relays is I can actually go from here. Oh, no. In fact, let me show you how to take off your wires. So I could just right click that and it will take the wire off with a engineer's wire cutter. And I can right click that one. And I can't attach a wire here. It's so stupid. Okay, well, it won't let me attach one there. But what I wanted to show you is, like, if we look over here, can you see with this relay? So these ones, you can only go from A to B. But look at this relay. It's got 3 wires attached to it. And you can actually put multiple onto these relays. That's what I'm trying to show you. I'm not sure why it wouldn't let me actually do it on this one. It was a bit bizarre. Might have been the angle. It might if it can't snap to it, it doesn't like the angle sometimes. But as you can see here, we've got 2 going into this one, and then it's relaying down to this transformer. What this transformer is doing is it's going from medium voltage to low voltage. And this is when you need to swap voltages around, you can use these transformers. And now you can see how we're transporting the power. So that's how we're going to transport power around. But how are we going to make any power to actually use? Well, the first thing you may want to use is a water wheel. If I just make a little wall here like this, and I'm just going to right click here, say, and I'm going 1, 2, 3. These can be 1 to 3 wide. And I'm just simply going to, not on the very top, but on the next one, go 1, 2, 3. And that's going to obviously pour the water on. And can you see it's now moving the water wheel? We've, however, have made a big mess. All you need to really do here, I mean, depends where you might be using it. You could be using it in somewhere that already is enclosed or in a lake, etc., making it all aesthetical and pretty. Not like me in my super flat. And there we go. The water wheel is making power. To actually get the power out, I'm just going to break that one. And can you see that's where the little circle is, like the very center? Well, on there, you're going to use this thing, a kinetic dynamo. However, when you place it against it, you'll see the hole is facing you. That is where we want to connect it to the water wheel. So get your engineer's hammer and right click, and that is going to rotate it round. See, I can keep rotating it. And then this little dot on the back, we can put an LV wire connector on it. Get our LV wire LV accumulator, our immersive engineering battery. Put our connector on there. Get our cable and just connect that up. Oh my God, why is it not liking me? There we go. Connecting that from there to there. And that will automatically pull energy out of the dynamo and into your LV accumulator. You can see there the energy is going up that we have made from our water wheel. And that is via kinetic energy. Another way to do this is with the windmill. As you can see here, I'm just going to break this one off and start again so I can show you. And with the windmill, similar process. We can get our windmill, and it is its own block like this, you see. Same as the windmill, you just put windmill blades on there. Right-click it to where you want, so let's say there. And the higher it is, the more wind it will, the more power it will produce. Same as before, knock off the top one, and then put the kinetic dynamo, twist it round so that it is facing into like the bolt, if you will. You can kind of see how the rotor is going in there. And it will actually get stuck on things. Can you see here it's getting stuck on me? And then it's going to start spinning. We can then actually get sails here, windmill sails, and these are made with the, again, the hemp that I showed you from the industrial hemp seeds that we can grow, industrial hemp fiber, into tough fabric, and then into a windmill sail. You just make some of these, you can simply right-click them like that, and you can see it's already speeding up and therefore making more energy. Same as before, a kinetic dynamo. That will reach the ground fine, but I've just used a relay here to kind of show you different ways that we can use relays, etc., to transport power around. And you can see this one has already filled up this battery. Another very cool way that you can actually make power is with a thermoelectric generator. If we go into our engineer's manual and go power, wires, and generators, and then, where is it? Thermoelectric. You can see there's a table here. And basically, you want to put the coolest material opposite to the hottest. You could use water and lava. If you want the best, it's going to be blue ice and uranium. And we could just make the thermoelectric generator. Put blue ice on one side see it, and then uranium on the other. That will make power. Again, you're going to output the LV connectors on top, going into a battery. Very, very simple for those ones. And you can, make a huge farm of these, sort of like I am. I won't call this a huge farm, but you can make a huge farm and just put more and more and more into it, a relay like that, and power a battery like that. And those are the 3 basic ways of generating power within immersive engineering. Before we move on now to more advanced machines, there's actually just a few basic ones that I'd really love to show you that a lot of people don't know about and they're really useful. Number 1 is the external heater. Basically, when you put this next to a furnace, if I get some, what's it called? Logs. Oh my God. Do I really play Minecraft? I'm like, what are they called? I can put an oak log in here. You see there's no fuel in here. Well, the external heater, which you can see is on, which will turn off in a second. There you go. It's turned off. Will actually basically provide the furnace with heat. All you have to do is power it from the back here. So again, putting an LV connector on here and then putting it on to some power. And that basically is called an external heater and can be used to heat furnaces. One of my favourite items in all of immersive engineering now, the garden cloche. Power it from the top, as you can see here, and then put water in the back. I'm using Mechanism for that, being a bit lazy. There's a black hole, you can kind of see there. You pump water in the back. Items output here with this orange dot. If we right click it, you can see that water is going in, fertilizer is going in. Now the fertilizer automatically goes in when I put the water in. Some mod packs will actually make you pump in your own fertilizer. As default, immersive engineering does not require you to add fertilizer in manually. It's normally only like harder mod packs that make you do that. And you put in your soil at the bottom. There's 2 slots here for your seed or whatever you're growing and your dirt. This is going to do like ender pearls on ender lilies and lots of things like that. Generally, a lot of things can be grown in here. So you could put in netherrack and netherwort, all sorts of things like that. Maybe even coral, I'm not sure. But you can put in so many different things. It works with so many different mods. And as you can see, it's going to really quickly just grow that wheat. Every kind of few seconds, really, you can see it's going to the next growth stage. And then there again. So it's taken like, 10, 20 seconds to make a piece of wheat. And it's just going to fill up here with the wheat and the seeds. And you can just output these however you want with item pipes, etc. on this socket here. Lastly, we have the charging station. This is really useful. Power it at the back. It's not the most intuitive. I can use my configurator here. Can you see on the green bar? It's not that full. And I can just right-click it. And then it's going to tell you how charged it is, depending on these 3 things here. Can you see it's gone green? The colour changes at the front. And now it's like, because it's like really charged. And then I just right-click it and take out the fully charged item. So it's fairly simple. It kind of gives you an indication of how charged it is. But it's good for just charging little bits and bobs, really. So now it is actually time to leave the basics behind and go on to, as you can see on my huge engineering map here, more advanced machines, starting with the metal press. So these are all multi-blocks that I'm going to be showing you. I'm going to be showing you some really useful ones, and then we're going to go on to advanced power. So starting off with the metal press, how do you make it? Well, the way we make multi-blocks is we place them like this in the recipe. And you can use your, where is it gone? Engineer's manual to see these as well. But it's a bit annoying in here. For the metal press, you're going to put 2 steel scaffolding, a redstone engineering block, a piston facing down, 2 conveyor belts going whichever way, and then a heavy engineering block. And you are simply going to, also, when I'm showing you these, just pause on the video. When I'm doing these, I'm purposely kind of stopping with it in view so you can see the recipe to make these multi-blocks to make it a bit easier for you. You just right-click it with your engineer's hammer, and it will turn it into the machine. And, oh, look, we've got one already set up. So you are going to need for the metal press some molds. Using the engineer's workbench, we can make the engineer's blueprint for molds. Put that in here. It's going to need steel plates and an engineer's wire cutters. And you can see all the recipes here. Plates, wires, rods, etc., bullet casings. And you can also make packing 3x3. this will actually pack up like ingots and stuff, or the plates, into 3x3 counterparts so you could store them easier if you have an insane amount of them. So I can then go, okay, I would like the plate mold, please. And then basically, I'm just actually going to throw that away because I've already got one on here. I'm going to walk up to it, and you can see on the actual plate press, just going to right-click, and it'll add that press to it. Shift right-click to then remove it. We can add a redstone lever to this red dot. Same for all machines. When you see the red dot, you can add a redstone lever or any type of redstone signal, and that is actually going to be able to, you know, turn it on or off. And then I'm going to put in here some iron ingots, and here they come, and they're going to get pressed into iron ingots. So you could just put a chest at the end where the plates will then go into. Isn't that amazing? And yes, we can use the redstone signal to turn it on or off. To power it, it's going to be up here. And specifically, you can see this little orange dot. That's how you know on the machines where to power them. Let's get my MV wire coil. Oh, no. And repower that. Not that I need it, because I've already shown you. Next one is going to be the crusher. This is another one of my favorites. It's going to crush up ores and double them for you. On the bottom, it's basically going to be a lot of steel and some light engineering blocks. Then in the middle, we're going to put a redstone engineering block with a light engineering here, a light engineering there, 3 more on the side, and then surround it all with steel fences, as you can see here, just surrounding that, and there's a corner missed out. Right-click the middle steel fence, and you'll then get the crusher. So again, redstone on or off here. Power goes in here, and then to output any items is at the front here. To import items, you actually just shove it into the crusher to crush up. So if I show you the one I've made earlier, you can see I'm powering it from here. I've put an extracting conveyor at the front to put the items into here. Redstone control, and all I can do is get some iron ore and just chuck it in like that. And can you see all the iron grit is then coming out? And it will also give you some nickel as well. So we're doubling our iron ores into 2 rather than 1. And it's just amazing. And it's just done all of those like that. Another 24. It's really, really fast. It's actually one of the quickest ways to ore double in modded Minecraft. Just like that. And that is the crusher. Next up, we have the sawmill. And after the sawmill, we're going to be going through to kind of more advanced power, really.
Okay, got a good area here.
I have to get rid of that conveyor because, my God, the sound is so loud with the saw blade on. I know you can't hear it, but for me, it's like, my ears. So this is the sawmill. Again, it's more steel scaffolding. Be careful, because that one in the middle there is a heavy engineering block, and the one at the back are light. And some iron sheet metal. Put some conveyors on, make sure they're going the right way. Another heavy here. Iron sheet metal, redstone. And then click this middle iron sheet metal to complete it. So basically, items can go in from the left. Oh, I should actually do this. And then they come out through the right. Any excess sawdust will come out the front here. So sawdust out the front, the items come off here. You power it on the top in the middle. So let's put through some oak logs. And you're going to see something specific is going to happen here. I put in my oak logs. You're going to see they go through and only get stripped. And the sawdust is coming out. And you're going to say, well, hang on a minute. I wanted actually planks. Well, you may notice there's no saw blade. So you need to actually make a saw blade and then right-click it into there. And now it will actually saw them for you as well, while still getting the sawdust coming out the front. And we've also got the redstone here. And that is how you use the sawmill. Oh, one more. This is the assembler. This is my favourite one of all. Basically, same again. Make it like this. This is the bottom. And this is the top. You then actually are going to put on 3 more sheet metal here. And then you're going to put slabs on the sides. So you can see I put slabs on the sides. And the conveyor's going whichever way you want. And then you just right-click the conveyor. Like that. When we go in here, and again it's powered from the top, redstone in the front. When we go in here, there's 3 different recipes, right? We can make all sorts of things. If I put oak log in the recipe slot, it can make oak planks. I can then put the oak logs in here, and it will just start making them. We can also input fluids through this fluid pipe hole here. And if it needs like water buckets, it will actually fill the water buckets in the recipe from that water you're piping in, which is amazing. What I can then do is take out the oak planks and go, I'm going to make some doors. and it can actually make the doors out of the oak planks that you are making from here. So you can use 3 different recipes, or 1, 2, and then 3, like an assembly line. And then you can have it going from this assembler into the next one, into the next one, and have a whole assembly line, like that made if you would like. And then you could just output them here. They won't go anywhere. They'll just stay sort of in here, unless you output a conveyor or a chest, etc., for them to go to. Now, we're going to really start looking at the squeezer, the fermenter, and the refinery, but really with the goal of making this the diesel generator. This is one of the best ways of making power in immersive engineering. So let's start off with the squeezer. So just to be clear here, we're making biodiesel to put it in the diesel generator to make our end game immersive engineering power. We're going to need plant oil and ethanol to do that. So how are we going to make our plant oil? Well, this is the squeezer. I'm going to be squeezing up plant oil from seeds. Hemp from immersive engineering is generally the best for that. The squeezer looks like this. It's pretty simple. 4 barrels here, etc. I'm sure you get it by now how to make these multi-blocks. If you're not sure, remember you can check in the manual.
Oh,
And redstone control here.
suck.
It's powered on here.
But that was all right.
Items in this slot and fluids in this slot. Remember, blue is in input, out is orange, out is output, out is orange. Well, out is orange. So we can output fluids down here, items up here. And then input is going to be through these 2 blue slots. So let's put in the hemp seeds, slowly going in. And the cool thing about this is it's very immersive, of course. And you can see it being squeezed into plant oil. Now, with this, you will get some hemp with it. And again, you can output those items through here. And that's going to get you your plant oil. Then we have the fermenter. Very similar. You power it on the top left here, redstone, etc. Items come out here, fluids come out here. Items go in the same 2 slots.
Look how nasty
and it's
that
made
damn
very
tilt
similarly,
is.
except it's 4 cauldrons and then iron sheet metal on top. Basically in here, I'm going to be putting in potatoes. And it's going to, you can't really see it doing anything, but they're fermenting in there. Just trust and believe. And it's turning it into ethanol. And again, you're going to output the ethanol here. After you've made both of those, we're going to make a refinery, which looks like this. So I'm actually going to show you a bit more here. Basically, it's 2 scaffolding at the back, 2 at the back, 2 at the front, 2 at the front. And then you're going to put heavy engineering blocks at the front, 2 light engineering blocks at the back, fluid pipe all the way through on the bottom, and then iron sheet metal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2,
He was
3,
living
4,
dangerous right there.
and then right-click this one, and there's a redstone one there.
Almost
And then
smacked
start,
it.
you've made the refinery. This will use the ethanol and the plant oil, I can't remember what it's called now, with a catalyst to make the diesel for your generator. So we're going to input ethanol from the right side here, or left side, it actually doesn't matter. Redstone again, lever can turn it on or off here. We're going to power it from the back here. And then your plant, what's it called? It is plant oil, is going to come in the other side. So you could have your squeezer going in here and your fermenter going in here, like I have done. And then we're going to put in nitrate dust, which can be made in the crusher, like I showed you earlier. You put in sand and stuff, you've got a chance to get nitrate dust. You just put 1 in as a catalyst, it will last forever. I'm pretty sure it's been there a long while, so I'm pretty sure it lasts forever. And that'll make you your biodiesel. You can also bucket it out using this blue slot here, bucket in here, bucket, then outputs here with the biodiesel. Then we're going to make the actual biodiesel generator. On the bottom, it's going to be fluid pipes here, and then steel scaffolding, radiators at the back. The radiators you need 9 of, as you can see here, 3, 3, 3. Fluid pipe in the middle, a generator block, and then 2 more fluid pipes. And then 3 more generator blocks at the front. Fill it all up with heavy engineering blocks and a redstone engineering block. And then add 5 more heavy on top with the extra 3 radiators. And then you just right-click this one into the diesel generator. So biodiesel can go in this blue hole and this one here. Power is going to come out of these 3 slots with high voltage. And a redstone lever can be added here. So looking at it all together, you can see the fan going, the smoke coming out. You know it's working. It's very loud. and you're going to put high voltage wire connectors on all 3 of here. You can see here I'm outputting it to this battery. If I put 2 more on here, HV wire coil, you can see it's filling up the battery fast as ever. And again, biodiesel going in here. So this is the automated setup I've made. So I've just got a creative accumulator here as a battery, and I've put it going into some wooden posts with some relays going all across. And what I'm doing is I'm using a garden cloche with industrial hemp. You will need more than one. This is just an example of how you could set this up and automate it. Using industrial hemp going into the squeezer, and there's hemp fiber coming out, and it's being squeezed into plant oil. The hemp fiber would need to be pulled out of here into a bin or something, and the plant oil is coming out into the refinery. And then over here, I've got my fermenter. Again, I'm using a cloche to make potatoes, putting them in, and I'm outputting the ethanol. It's just going under the ground and then coming back up into the refinery. And then out the front here is my I need my catalyst, my nitrate. And there comes the biodiesel coming out the front of the refinery. And this is all automated. So again, I've just put some wooden posts up here, the relay going along and powering with connectors, the cloche and the squeezer, then going again to another post and powering the refinery, and again with the fermenter and the cloche here. You can see the wires really can go quite a long way as long as I don't get hit by anything. And then that biodiesel is just coming out under the ground. You can kind of see here into the biodiesel generator. And that is how you can automate your biodiesel for endgame immersive engineering. One other way that you can actually make endgame energy is with the lightning rod here, although I don't really think it's that good. Basically, there's 4 steel scaffolding, some HV accumulators, and then 3 high voltage coils in the center. Puts 4 light engineering blocks on top with some treated fence, and then surround it with copper coils like this, and then just right click the light engineering block. That'll turn it into a lightning rod like this. You can add connectors here for the power to come out, and then add like a steel fence net, as you can see here, on top to increase the chance of it being hit. However, I've been standing here for like 5 minutes and it still hasn't been hit. I think the chance of it actually being hit is quite low. It's a cool idea, but I don't think it's really that good. But I wanted to show you it anyway, in case it is something, you want to try out. Now that we have all of this power we're making, let's actually have a look at how we can utilize it. This huge monstrosity is the arc furnace, the piece de resistance of immersive engineering. Basically, it can smelt up an insane amount of ores and ingots for you. To start making it, it's a big old machine. We're going to need a lot of steel sheet metal slabs on the bottom like this. And then, oops, this is actually wrong. On either side is then 2 blocks of steel and a heavy engineering block. The back and sides here are actually steel sheet metal, a piece of steel scaffolding, and a cauldron. Then on the middle, add a redstone engineering block on the front, 6 reinforced blast bricks. So yes, there is basically a gap where these are slabs and these are not. 3 light engineering blocks, and then 2 and 2 heavy ones with another block of steel on each side. Going up another level, then bring out the reinforced blast brick, sort of like this. So you've got 2 more at the front. But again, the same 6 here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, basically. We're then going to add some sheet metal on top, and then another 3 light engineering blocks. So on the back, basically, do heavy here, heavy here, heavy here, and then light in the middle. 2 more blocks of steel. So 1, 2, 3 blocks of steel here. And then on top of that, you're going to add another 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 reinforced blast bricks. Add 2 and 2 steel scaffolding, 2 light engineering blocks, and then bring that out like, well, I won't say what that looks like, but, but yeah, that's how you make it. And then you just right-click the cauldron. And ta-da! You've made the arc furnace. It is crazy big. There's 3 slots here, as you can see at the back, for where you're going to basically plug in your electricity. I'm using HV for a relay here. Oops, what have I done? Oh, it's medium voltage. Through the back here, so 3 plugs at the back. Slag is going to come out the back here. That's basically your waste product. You can pipe that out. And the ores or outputs are going to come out the front. If we right-click and go into it, it looks complex, but it's actually really not. This left slot is basically where you're going to put your ores. Let's say I want to make some... I've just dug up loads of iron ore. I can put it in here, and you can see that it's heating up slowly. As it heats up, that's when it's then going to go down to the output slot. Your slag is also going to come in. I can just delete that for now, because it only has this 1 slot for slag. I think there's 6 are for your output, and just 1 slot for the slag output. And you can see here then the iron ingot comes through to this 6
to mess around in.
I can also make in here things like constantan or bronze. Let's say we want to make some bronze using copper and tin. So in this secondary slot, that's where you put, well, your secondary items. So I'm going to put copper ingots in the left slot.
16
and then I'm going to
chunks.
put tin in the right slot.
Oh, yeah.
And that's actually going to automatically pull these down together into the output as bronze. We then have this top bar, and this is where you put your graphite electrodes. Notice that the integrity is going down. This huge machine will need replacement for the graphite electrodes, which they call maintenance. So basically, the graphite electrodes will only last so long, and then you have to replace them. To make them, you need to make a furnace electrodes blueprint, which you can't actually, by default, make. You need to find it, I believe, in like treasure chests, etc., or from villagers. And you make HOP graphite ingots. To make that, you're going to smelt up HOP graphite dust, which is made in the industrial squeezer from coke dust or pet coke dust. And I showed you the squeezer earlier, of course. The coke dust is made from crushing coal coke in the crusher. So you put coal coke in the crusher into coke dust, and then you put that in the squeezer into HOP graphite dust, and then just smelt that up into HOP graphite ingots, which can then be made into the electrodes, which you then put in your arc furnace. Now, it's really cool. You've got all these flames coming out the top of it, like you can see here. You can input items, by the way, in these 2 input slots up here, and you can see it actually melting it all down here, which is really cool, and your items will come out the front. And same as other machines, you can add the redstone control here. And that is how you use the arc furnace. Now, if you're wondering, okay, cool, I can smelt up all of these ores, but how the hell am I going to mine them all with immersive engineering? Well, that is where the final machine, the ore excavator, comes in.
All right, enough of that video.
This is pneumatic craft. Rather than using electricity, it actually uses pressure inside of the machines to power and make everything, which is actually really, really unique and interesting. I'm going to be showing you today how to do absolutely everything in pneumatic craft from start to finished. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to make is going to be compressed iron ingots. Now, there is going to be an actual easier way to make these later on in the mod. However, to start with, we actually need to explode some iron. Now, this is going to work at about 80% efficiency, meaning that you will lose 2 ingots in every 10. I'm not sure if that's exact or if it's rough, so you may get a little bit lucky or a little bit unlucky with that, or maybe you won't get lucky or unlucky because it's exact, but it's about 80% efficiency. So we could just throw our iron ingots down, get a piece of TNT, flint and steel that bad boy, and then when it explodes, obviously we're going to have a big dent. But what you'll actually see is rather than iron ingots, you now have, if I just got rid of these ones, we're going to jump in, and we now have 43 compressed iron. Whereas I think we had a stack of iron ingots, I'm not sure. So there you go, you've already got compressed iron. That is the first thing we need. The next thing we need to do is actually make some pressure. So the easiest way to do that is with a manual compressor. If we look at the ingredients here, and as an FYI, I don't go over every single recipe, don't worry. I just want to introduce some of the kind of things that we're using in pneumatic craft. So you can see some compressed iron gears, very easy. A stone base. needing just any old stone and a pressure tube, you need a pressure tube as well. So pressure tubes are actually the tubes that carry around your air pressure in pneumatic craft, and they just need some compressed iron ingots as well to make. If I hover over the manual compressor, I'm using the one probe to show me this information at the top, by the way, which is a different add-on. You can see it says pressure 0.4 out of 5 bar. And bar is the way that we record how much pressure is in something. So this manual compressor, I can actually just use my hand and pump away at it. And you can see the pressure inside is increasing. Obviously, that is a very manual way of doing it. This is the starter way of doing it. As we go down, you're going to see there's lots of other ways to make pressure. There is an air compressor, which basically just uses flammable objects like blocks of coal. And as the pressure increases, this bar counter will go up. It shows you the pressure here. You can see the pressure is 0 bar and how much air is inside it and how much it can produce per tick. And any problems. There's an air leak. Place pipes or machines on the output sides. So obviously this isn't going anywhere. We can add some upgrades in here. We can say, do we want it to work with redstone or not? And then you can see some information about it. So the air compressor is one that can be made very, very simply. Again, you will need some reinforced bricks. And reinforced bricks can be made from reinforced stone, which again is 8 stone and again some compressed iron. There is also at a later point in the mod an advanced air compressor. You can see that the pressure here is 5 bar, whereas on this advanced one it is 20. However, there is a temperature gauge, so you don't want to let it get too hot. There's also a liquid compressor which has vanished. It should be right here. There we go. The liquid compressor will use liquids. And if you use available fuels here, you can see the different liquids you can use and how good they are. Liquid steam, plastic, lithium, lava, for example. So an early game, you could pump in lava. In not too long of a kind of playthrough, you can get to crude oil and things like this as well. Or even LPG, which would be the best. And we're going to be making that later. And again, there is an advanced liquid compressor that you can make later on in the game as well that has up to 20 bar, but will need the temperature. So the base ones don't have a temperature gauge, and you don't need to worry about the temperature in there. Then we have the thermal compressor. You can see here, this has a pressure of up to 10 bar. And can you see it says north, south, west, and east temperature? So what you need to do is have opposite each other a hot block and a cold block. This obsidian has obviously, this was lava. It's finally turned into obsidian. So if I just get some lava here, and here, and here, what you'll see is south and north, west and east. You want these to be opposites. So south is really, really hot. Look at like 250 degrees, whereas north is, actually it's getting hotter, but the ice is really cooling it down, so it's an opposite, and same with west and east. And that is slowly increasing the pressure, as you can see here. Now, this is going to go into the red zone, which is really, really bad news. So the pressure is just going to keep increasing, increasing, increasing. If you were taking pressure out with, say, pressure pipes, the pressure will decrease. But as you can see here, we're not taking out enough pressure. I mean, we're not taking out any pressure here. And after all of that, it goes into the red zone and the machine explodes. So how do we stop the machine from exploding? Well, as we're starting from 0, I've got a while for me to explain it to you. What we can also do is, you see there's an upgrade slot. We can make a security upgrade. So a security upgrade needs a safety tube module, which needs a pressure tube and a pressure gauge. The pressure gauge, again, very easy. It's a compressed iron ingot, which you've already looked at making, some obsidian, and some lapis lazuli. So we can make a safety or a security upgrade. You can see what it's used in. When I put this wasn't lava, anything that's hot and anything that's cold will work. So whatever you have in your mod pack. If I put the security upgrade into my upgrade slot here, what's actually going to happen is that when it reaches the maximum pressure near the kind of maximum amount near the red zone, it will automatically release some pressure and keep the pressure down. Now, we can also add some speed upgrades into here. Oh, you can't add it into this machine? Okay. You can't add it into everything. You can see the ones you can use it in here. I guess we can't use a speed upgrade in here. We can add a volume upgrade, meaning there's more air in here, which would mean you'd need more air being pressurized to get to the same level of pressure. And these ones, again, then will keep you safe. Best way to show it, because this one's going to take forever, is I can show you with this air compressor over here. Can you see that I'm using 2 speed upgrades, which means it'll obviously get to higher pressure quicker, and a security upgrade. And can you see when I'm burning the coal, it's going up to about into the red zone, and then it releases some pressure. And you will actually see the air coming out of here. There you go. You can see it releasing some pressure. Without the security upgrade, it would just go blah, 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 and explode. So that's really good to know. And that one is the thermal compressor. We've also got a flux compressor, which uses redstone flux, so electricity and energy. You'd obviously power that. You can't power stuff in pneumatic craft. It's all from pressure. But other mods, obviously giving electricity, you can pump into the flux compressor. We also have an electrostatic compressor, which basically uses lightning strikes. And I mean, I don't think this is going to be used very much, but it is available if you want it. And if you are working in creative, there is also a creative compressor where you can add whatever bar of pressure you like. If I put up to 10 bar, it's now 10 bar pressure. Cool. So that, everyone, is how you get compressed iron ingots, and that is how we make air and compressed air and pressure using different compressors. Once you actually have some compressed air and you have some compressed ingots,
this
what
torch
we're going to
spam
want
is
to make
ridiculous.
is a pressure chamber, which
But
is
I
this
don't
we
want
see
shit
before us.
spawning.
You can make a 3x3, as I've got here, a 4x4, or a 5x5. It's mainly made with pressure chamber walls. Let's make a 4x4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like this. You can put glass anywhere that isn't on the edge. So you can put glass like on all of these kind of ones if you want. Or you can put pressure chamber glass just on the front, which is what I do. Now you will also need on your pressure chamber a pressure chamber valve. And this is basically where you allow your pressure into. So once I put the valve on, you can see it turns into the multi-block. And again, this is where you put your pressure into. So I'm going to use my example over here and remake this setup. So I'm going to use an air compressor, which uses things like coal. And then to the back of it, you can see this hole here. I'm going to add a pressure tube and attach that into the valve and attach those up. I'm going to put in my security upgrade. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Meaning that if the pressure gets too high into the red zone, of course, it won't overflow and explode. It'll let some air out. And I'm going to add some speed upgrades. Now, you don't want to put too many speed upgrades in here because it will get absolutely out of hand and the security upgrade won't really be able to keep up and it'll go way too fast. See, if I put like 7 speed upgrades in here, or if I put in 10, you know, look how fast it's burning through that coal and it is going up. So do be careful with that. So you can see on the pressure chamber valve, it says 2 out of 5 bars of pressure. And you can see the pressure of the air inside it. So how do we actually use this? Because we can actually make compressed iron ingots in here and other things a lot easier. Well, we are going to need pressure chamber interfaces. And this is basically where you can input and output items from your pressure chamber. So I can go 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and that's going to put those interfaces here. Now, one thing to note is that you do need to have some sort of way of getting items in and out of here. So I'm going to put a chest here and a chest here, and then I'm going to use a mechanism for my logistical cable. So you need some sort of cabling or something from another mod, really. And if we right-click on this interface, what you'll see is over here on interface status, it says importing items. Okay, that's good. So I can click my cable on there and cable on there, get my configurator from mechanism, shift right click, so it's pulling, meaning what I can do is get some iron, put it into the chest, and it's going to go into the interface. Then you can see the rest is coming back out because it can only take one at a time. And you can see in there, it's now turned it into compressed iron ingots rather than iron ingots. And then another one tries to go in, and it will do the next one. Now, you'll notice that this one as well that I've placed also says importing items. So what we need to make here is a pneumatic wrench. Pneumatic wrenches need an air canister, but again, it's basically just a pressure tube and some compressed iron ingots, which just needs more compressed iron. And what you're going to want to also make is a charging station. So for example here, I've used an air compressor. Well, and I don't think you need to charge these for this, but you will need to charge them for a lot of other things. A charging station, again, very simple to make. We're just going to add some more pressure tubes. You can see the pressure coming out, goodness Lord, and attach that to the charging station. You then put your pneumatic wrench into the item slot here in the charging station. You can click this arrow to block the pressure going in, or you can let the pressure in. You can see the globules of air going into the pneumatic wrench, and you can see the pressure increasing in the wrench. So now that we've got some pressure in our wrench, we're going to go over to our pressure chamber interface, and we're going to, not shift right click, because that's going to break it.
He broke it. Lol.
But we are going to... Okay, I'm actually having a bit of problems with these, but I've gotten it working. So the interface, I noticed if you press it down like this, you can see I'm turning the face. And now it's not turning. On this one, if I do it from this side, it changes between nothing, exporting items, and importing items, which is what you'd expect to see. So you may have to do this pneumatic wrench when you're building this from different sides, or you may have some issues with it. Because what we should be able to do here is place an interface, and that is importing items, and then place an interface, right-click it, and as you can see, I've managed to turn it around, but now it's stopped. You're meant to be able to rotate it, you see. So if I take off this one, now I can rotate it all the way around, which is a bit interesting. So if you do have troubles with that like I just did, just take off a wall or whatever's next to it and rotate it from the side. So now you can see this one says exporting items. We want to export all items. No, we want to only export crafted items. And this one, of course, is importing. So just be careful, I guess, with that happening, which is very strange. So again, I'm going to put my cable to import in the iron ingots. And then I'm just going to cut that off. So that's now exporting automatically items that are crafted in here into this chest. So I'm just going to reattach my pressure tube. There we go. Pressure is increasing. And we can look at this with something like the one probe installed and see that the pressure is increasing inside the pressure chamber. Once it gets to the required pressure, it will actually make the craft. So if we look at compressed iron ingots in a pressure chamber, you can see here it's showing you where you need the pressure to go up to. Pressure 2 bar. If we click on the pressure chamber wall here and press U for uses and then click on pressure chamber, you can see all of the things you need, because some things will need a different level of pressure. For example, I could put a diamond pickaxe in and a book, and it will give you a fortune 1 and an efficiency 1 book, but it will actually need 5 bars of pressure. You could put in 8 blocks of coal and get a diamond because it's compressing, carbon into diamonds, but you will need 4 bars of pressure. So if you're never sure how much pressure you need, then have a little look in the, just click on the pressure chamber wall and press U in JEI. Once this air compressor gets up to the right level of pressure, which it will eventually with this coal, I mean, if you just keep burning stuff, it's just going to keep going up and up and up. With the security upgrade in, it will just hover around 5, which is obviously enough for the recipes we need, and that will be fine. So once that gets high enough, that iron ingot is going to turn into a compressed iron ingot, and then it will get pushed out of the export side of the interface into the chest here, where we're going to get compressed iron. So just don't forget, you can make these a 3, 4, or 5 by 5 glass polygon on the inside. You will need a valve to import your pressure using pressure tubes. You will
PCBs and my drone stuff, I don't know
about. Export your items by turning the interfaces around. And that is how you use the pressure chambers. Once you've successfully set up your pressure chamber, the next thing you're going to want to do in Pneumaticraft is start drilling for oil. This here is my basic oil drilling setup. Now, you will find oil, like you will here, just anywhere in the open world, and you'll find much more of it down below as well. What I'm actually going to do here is set up this exact same installation, but from scratch, so you can see what I've done. So step one, find your oil. As you can see, we have found oil. One thing to note as well, you may have other mods in your mod pack that are generating oil. Don't worry if you can't find any Pneumaticraft oil in your world. The mod is clever enough to know and be able to collect and use any type of oil.
Oh,
So the first thing we're going to need to get is a gas lift, okay? Quite simple to make here, as you can see. Get your gas lift, and I'm just going to place some peat here, and I'm going to put the gas lift here. So it's over the oil. Now, it will need some pressure. So by this point, you should already have a little compressor. I'm going to use an air compressor, fill it with fuel, and add some speed and a security upgrade so that the pressure doesn't go over. And so that it gets to where we want it a bit quicker. Now, don't forget that you can actually see where the pressure is coming out of, and we can add pressure into any of these holes on our gas lift. So I'm simply going to attach some pressure tubes. You can now see the pressure is building in the gas lift, and as you can see, it is already filling up with crude oil, which is fantastic. Now, if you are far away from your base, maybe you need to transport some oil back to your base. The way I would do this is using a liquid hopper from Pneumaticraft. The way that you want to do it is you face it to the block the opposite. And I'm not going to explain this very well, so I'll just show you. If I want it to pull out of the gas lift, I need to do it from the block above. So I'm going to actually go below here and then right click on the block above and then use my wrench to turn it. And as you can see, oops, crude oil is now coming from the gas lift into the liquid hopper. In the mode, you can actually change it so that it leaves a bucket in the tank here, basically filtering the liquid that you have in here, which is really, really clever. Obviously, if I place it down here, it's going to take it from above and put it below like a normal hopper would. So it is omnidirectional, and you can right-click with the pneumatic wrench to change which way it's facing. As you can see, I'm actually piping up this lake of oil really, really quickly. It wasn't very deep. The deeper pockets are generally underground. But for this, it's okay. If you are going to be taking it back home, you could plop on top a small fluid tank, and that's going to place the liquid hopper into the tank. And as you can see, this is filling up with up to 32 buckets of crude oil. And that is how you get crude oil in Pneumaticraft. We can then process this. Let's see if I can look at it in JEI. Yes, here we go. So the next item or thing you're going to want to do is process it in a refinery. You can see here the crude oil with the temperature going up into diesel, kerosene, gasoline, and then LPG, baby!
Yeah, LPG.
Yes, the end. Once you have actually gotten your oil, we now need to process it into different fuels in the oil refinery, which is what I have made in front of me. So let's make our own now. So the first things first, you're going to want to pipe in your oil. I'm going to be using a fluid tank that I have already gotten oil from, magically. And then what I'm going to do is put on a liquid hopper. So I'm going to place my refinery controller. This is the main item that is the refinery. And I'm going to shift right click the hopper onto the refinery controller so that it's pulling from the tank into the refinery controller. On top of that refinery controller, we need 4 refinery outputs. 1, you may need to shift 2, 3, 4. Now, the thing is about this, if we can now go into it, now that we've made the multi-block, and you can see the crude oil coming in, you can see that nothing is happening because it needs to be over 100 Celsius in order to work. And we're going to get 4 different fuels being made from our crude oil in here. Now, the heat will escape from these outputs, but what we can do is make these thermal laggings. Thermal lagging is just wool and glass, and we can place it or shift click it onto our outputs here. This is going to stop any heat from escaping from our refinery outputs. However, it will actually, it'll still let you click into the block. You have to actually sneak to be able to break it. So I hope that makes sense. If I left click now, it wouldn't break you can see at the top, I'm targeting the refinery output, where if I shift, then it's targeting the thermal lagging. I must say, the developer who made this mod, he or she or they have thought about all these little things in this mod that would be annoying, and they have just fixed them. It's just amazing. I love it when I see this happen. I get really geek out over it. So the next thing is we need to actually get the heat into the refinery. What I would personally use is a vortex tube and a heat sink. And I'm going to be using, along with that, an air compressor and some pressure tubes. So what the vortex tube is, if I place one here, you can see that one side is hot, 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 and one side is cold, cold, cold. So I'm going to place it up against my refinery controller, and I'm going to use my pneumatic wrench to turn it so that the hot side is going onto the refinery controller. I'm going to use a heat sink on the cold side. What a heat sink does is it will dissipate that cold side into the air, basically. And now, just to make it work, we need to give it some pressure. So I'm just going to use an air compressor, put in some coal. Obviously, you can use whatever pressure system that you've already got going. Security upgrade. And some speed upgrades. Put my pressure tubes onto there. That is then pushing the bar up on the vortex tube. And you can see on here that the north temperature, which is this way, is increasing with the south temperature decreasing, which is this side. And you'll see that the heat sink is absorbing or dissipating the cold temperature on this side. So now we go into our oil refinery. You can see that it is heating up. You could just put lava next to this if you wish. You don't have to use a vortex tube, but lava solidifies, torches burn out, lots and lots of reasons. I think making a vortex tube would be just the best way to deal with this. And you can now see that we're making diesel, kerosene, gasoline, and LPG. If we look at what we could do with these different fuels, diesel being the first one, with some redstone, and this is in thermo-pneumatic processing plant, which I haven't obviously gone over yet. You could turn it into lubricant. Lubricant is actually how you are going to make lots of other stuff that I'm not going to go into right now. We have kerosene, which can be made into gasoline, which can be made into LPG. LPG can be made into molten plastic. And this is basically the way that you start then getting plastic. We have gasoline and LPG here. And these four fuels are going to kind of go up, and ideally you're looking mainly in this tutorial, the reason I'm doing it is to give you LPG so that we can then get molten plastic. And there we go. That is how you use the oil refinery. If you're still not sure, however, by the way, how to get these out of here, if we actually click onto it, you can see the second one is kerosene. So the second one up is where kerosene will be. Just leave one side open from these thermal laggings, and you can pump it out with whatever kind of liquid tubing that you want. And I'm using mechanisms, mechanical cables here to do that. So obviously gasoline on this one, LPG on this one, and diesel on the bottom one. Once you've then obviously got your LPG, etc., what we're going to set up is the thermo-pneumatic processing plant, of course. And this is where we're starting to make plastic. One thing you could do, what are they called? Thermo heat pipes? Yes, heat pipes. An insulated core of compressed iron which can transfer heat without losing any to adjacent air or fluid blocks. So basically, what we can do with this is, you see I've got my vortex tube. In fact, what I'm going to do is set up my vortex tube. Oh god, this is going to be all higgledy-piggledy, but no worries, because I want to show you how to do this to make it really efficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pipe in the air, which is obviously heating it up, remember, and I'm going to put the heat sink on my vortex tube here. But what we can actually do is get a heat pipe, and you can see here the heat pipe is transferring the heat. So what I can do is transfer that heat from my vortex tube into, it should get hot enough, yes, into my refinery controller. But we're also going to need some heat in the thermo-pneumatic processing plant, of course. So what we're going to do is actually, this is so higgledy-piggledy, it's hilarious. Absolute spaghetti. As always, if you're used to my tutorials, everything is so spaghetti. What we can then do is get that heat into our thermo-pneumatic processing plant and also everywhere else we need, like the refinery, all from one vortex tube. So we've got the LPG, which we're piping out using Mechanism's mechanical pipes, or you could use anything that can transport, liquids. So it's the top one, that's where it comes out from, the LPG. Put it into the thermo-pneumatic processing plant, and then we're just going to need some coal. You can't use coal blocks, it does actually need to be coal, and you put that in this slot here. And as you can see, we are getting molten plastic. You don't really need much pressure at all. In fact, this isn't even using any pressure at all, which is great. It does say here, I don't know if I explained it earlier, but the orange bit, I think I did, is where it goes to 0. 3 of 6 block faces are exposed to the air. And that is where, exposed to the air, and that is where you want to get your thermal laggings and sort of go 1, 2, and 3. And there we go. There's no air exposure, so no heat will be leaking out. So what we can actually do here is put a chest down, get a heat frame. We've got our molten plastic here, as you can see. And then I'm going to put a heat frame on top of the chest. And as you can see here, it says temperature is rising. So what I'm then going to do is actually go in here with some buckets. Let's get a stack of buckets. And we could basically fill these up with buckets of molten plastic. What I could then do is get a logistical pipe from Mechanism or anything that can transport items. Oops, see, I don't even know what I done there. Really doesn't like that. Bizarre. Okay, well that isn't working. But basically what you want to do is get your buckets. You may have to do this manually. You should be able to put these heat frames on a tank, I thought, but I don't seem to be able to. But you can put them onto inventories, and a chest seems to work. So if you get a bucket of molten plastic, as long as it is cool enough, it will actually cool it down. So remember, we actually have our heat sink here, which is really, really cold. So what we could do is get our heat pipe, which is the cold side, and bring this over from our vortex tube onto our heat frame, which you can see is getting really, really cold now. And it's going to turn that molten plastic into a plastic sheet. You may be able to work out a better way of doing it. I've played around with it. I can't get it to work on any tanks. It would need an inventory, which this does. But yeah, it just doesn't seem to like it for some reason. But that is actually how you make plastic sheets. The next thing on our to-do list, now that we've got our plastic, etc. sorted, is making some PCBs. It's a multi-step process, but it's quite straightforward. The first thing you're actually going to want to make, however, is an Amadron tablet. These are really, really cool. So you can put them in your charging station, and then you can charge them up with pressure. I can't remember where my charging station is, but you should have it from when you've used your pneumatic wrench. And when we go into the Amadron tablet, you can see it's basically a store. What we're going to do is go over to a chest and shift right click the chest. You'll see this little orange square inside, and that is where you're going to put your things. If we go into the Amadron tablet, you can sell and buy things. So for example, for 14 emeralds, we can buy a assembly program, drill and laser. But in here, what we actually want today is a PCB blueprint. So 8 emeralds, okay? So what I'm going to do is put 8 emeralds, or more than 8 emeralds, into my chest here that I've shift-clicked to note it for the Amadron. And then I'm going to go down and I'm going to right click this PCB blueprint. And what you'll see is there's a number 1 on here, orders in basket 1. If I left click it, it goes down, right click, I've added that order. And you can add loads of orders if you want. You could do whatever the hell you like. You can also use middle click and shift left click, etc. There's little slot information here, but I'm just right clicking to add this to my order. And for this tutorial, we only need the PCB blueprint. So, okay, we're going to press place order. And what you're then going to see is a drone comes down, takes my emeralds, you can see the emeralds in it, and it's going to fly off, and then it's going to come back with my PCB blueprint, which is crazy. This is really, really awesome, and this is where pneumatic craft gets really exciting. Okay, if we look in the chest now, you'll see you've got a PCB blueprint. Awesome. As well as the PCB blueprint, we're also going to need an empty PCB. To make this, in your pressure chamber, we're going to need some plastic sheets. And if you are using this in a mod pack, don't forget that you can actually use plastic from other mods like Industrial Foregoing. Gold or copper nuggets and 2 redstone torches. And that will make you 3 empty PCBs, and it needs 1.5 bar of pressure. Now, what's annoying is, for example, if you're like me and you want to use like mechanism pipes to input into your pressure chamber, it does work a bit annoyingly in the fact that it tries to put in 1 item at a time. So I could put in my 3 nuggets. You see 1 goes in, the other 2 come out. And then in a minute, the other nugget will go in. See, now the second one goes in, and then you've got to wait again. And then eventually the third one will go in. And we put in a plastic sheet. It should be 2 redstone torches. I don't know if there's only 1 in there or 2. So I'm just going to put in a second one just in case I've only got 1 in there. And now, as you can see, we've gotten some empty PCBs coming out. I've now got 6 in here. It does make 3 at a time. I already had 3 in here from earlier when I was testing this. So out comes from the output slot 3 empty PCBs. So let's just use 1 for now. So what we now need to do is charge this empty PCB with sunlight. And we do that in a machine called a UV light box. Now the UV light box is very simple to make, but it will need a PCB blueprint, which is why we ordered one from the Amadron. So you make it and you just place it down with some pressure tubes. And then what you're going to do is input your empty PCB. And you can see it does need access to sunlight, and it will need 1 or more pressure. I've put a security upgrade in here to make sure that the pressure doesn't go over, and I've put some speed upgrades. And as you can see, the success chance is going up slowly. If you don't have these speed upgrades in here, it will go a lot slower. The success chance you can let to get to 100% if you want. You can let it get to 80%. And you can add a threshold where it will push it into the output slot at a lower percentage if you want, like maybe 92% chance. I'm going to leave it at 98% chance. And as you can see, with 5 speed upgrades in, it really doesn't take very long at all. If you do get a failed one, because you've put the threshold really low, for example, you can put the failed one back into a blast furnace and be able to use it again. So as you can see, it's getting to 90%, and I'm just going to take it out at 90%, so you can take that out manually if you like. So now that we've got the empty PCB that is, well, sort of filled, the next thing we need to do is put it into an etching tank. So the etching tank itself, I don't believe is very difficult to make. No, it's quite simple, but you are going to need some etching fluid. Now, etching fluid is made, again, in a pressure chamber, a bucket, 2 rotten flesh, 2 spider's eye, and 2 gunpowder. So just put those into your pressure chamber. It's a bucket of molten plastic. So the plastic that you've made earlier, before you've cooled it into plastic sheets, get a bucket of molten plastic, and you put this in here with these ingredients, and you get your etching acid bucket. And you can just bucket this into the etching tank. You can just literally right-click on the tank from here, and it will put it in. And as you can see here, I've got some etching acid. So we then get the empty PCB, and I put it into this huge grid here. I don't know why the grid is so big, but as you can see on here, it's now got the etching progress. So once that progress is done, we will then get a finished PCB. Well, we won't actually. That's a complete lie. We'll get a unassembled PCB. My apologies. So you can see here, empty PCB with the etching acid goes into an unassembled PCB. With the unassembled one, you simply just craft it with some transistors and capacitors. And capacitors are made again in the pressure chamber with a plastic sheet, a slime ball, and some gold nuggets. And the transistors, oh my god, transistor is made of a plastic sheet, some redstone, and some nuggets as well. What I would do is probably just make a few pressure chambers at this point, if you haven't already, for different recipes that you're using, and probably make some big ones as well, where you can have more input slots and be putting things in faster to get these recipes going. So once you've made those and you've gotten your unassembled PCB, that's obviously going to come out of our etching tank here when it's finished, we then get the finished PCB. And the finished PCB can be used in quite a lot of things. We've got a chunk loader upgrade for chunk loading, a programmable controller, assembly controllers, drone interfaces, assembly platforms. This is where the mod gets really, really interesting. You need them in things like your drones and your assembly drills, which we're going to be using in things like assembly lines. And you're also going to need them in things like solar compressors, you know, for your more advanced air compressors, a flux compressor, and also micro missiles and things like that. Also including the pneumatic chest plate and boots, etc., that form the pneumatic armor. And there you go. That is how we make PCBs. Once you've made your PCBs in Xycraft, the next big thing you can do is using an assembly line to actually start creating some really advanced items. This here is a working assembly line, and although it may originally look complicated, it's actually really, really straightforward. Let's see what we're making here. In this assembly line, we are making solar cells. If we look in JEI at how to make them, you can see that we are going to need to use a assembly controller. And it shows you the required machines. That doesn't really matter too much. The program you need, the items you need, and what it's going to make. So we are first going to start off with an assembly controller. So I'm going to place this here. And this is actually the controller that basically you put your recipe in, and it tells you what are we going to be doing with this assembly line. It must actually also have some pressure. So I'm going to put a creative compressor here and get some pressure tubes. So basically, you can see that the pressure automatically goes in when you put the pressure tube to any side of the controller. And it's going to say what bar I want. It's going to be bar 5. For the assembly controllers. It can go in from any side, and this is the only part of the assembly line that you must provide with pressure. Now I'm going to add a security upgrade, and I'm going to add some speed as well, because the assembly lines are a bit slow if you don't do this. And then you can see here it needs a program. This program tells the assembly line, you know, what is it going to do? In your Amadron tablet, you need to buy these. You can also trade them from the mechanic villagers. So you can see here we could buy a program, drill, and laser, or assembly program, drill. I'm going to buy a drill one. Now imagine I've just bought that from my Amadron, because I am obviously in creative, so I'm going to be lazy. And what I'm just going to show you again, remember, is if we look at making these solar cells, can you see it says program, drill? So what I'm going to do is I've got my drill program, and I'm going to go into the assembly controller, and I'm going to take that drill one that I just bought and put it into program. So that's how you know what ones to put in there. Now we set up the assembly line. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach an import arm to the controller. So horizontally, these assembly parts must be touching the controller, because the controller will provide them with pressure and, you know, power, etc. And obviously the program that's going to be using. So this is an import one. This can reach any block around it, including diagonally. So like here, I could put all my ingredients behind here. So let's do that. Let's say, you know, this is where I want to put it. However, I actually want my items to go, no, in fact, yes, let's put it there. So that's where I'm going to be importing items from. I'm using the same recipe that we're doing on the one I've already made. I'm going to be using solar wafers. So the import arm will import items from this chest automatically. It just knows if there's any compatible items nearby, and it will put them into the system. Then we have an assembly platform. This is basically the workstation, the work table, the crafting table, if you will, for the assembly line. You then are going to have your items that can actually make things. What I would do here is I would put one on each side. So we have an assembly drill I'm going to put here, and then there's also a laser. And I'm going to put the laser on this side. So you've got your import, you've got your assembly platform, and you've got your laser and your drill. And then we're going to get our export arm. And I'm going to put a chest here. Now, as you can see, what's happening is the import arm is going to be importing the solar wafers onto the assembly platform from this chest. As you can see, it's reaching in, pulling out the item, and putting it onto here. Now, because in the controller I have a drill program, it knows that it should be using the drill. So the drill here, as you can see, when it gets the item again, it's automatically going to start drilling the item on the assembly table. And then once the item is complete, the export arm is going to pull it into a nearby chest. So, like I said, it's automatically going to know if there's a recipe available to it. These arms can reach diagonally, the import and export arms. However, the drill and laser cannot go diagonally. So you will need to set it up like this. Honestly, I would just say to copy what I have done. I would say I've made the perfectly designed assembly line for all of the uses that you're going to be using. And that is literally it. That is a completed assembly line in Xycraft. If we actually go into the, if you go onto one like the assembly laser and press U on it in JEI, you can then see assembly controller up here. You can pretty much see what you can make with this one. So I think this is going to be anything including a laser. So advanced pressure tubes, which can actually go up to 20 bar, which are much more advanced. Aphorism tile, a smart sign which can store and display arbitrary amounts of text scaled. Oh, you can also make empty PCBs into unassembled PCBs in here. So rather than using the UV light box, it can laser it straight into that? Oh, maybe so. Okay. But we could do lots of other things, basically. So, yes, and you could make a block of compressed iron into 8 advanced pressure tubes, which is really amazing. But you will see there you need both, and it will just use both. That's absolutely fine. So you can always see what recipes you can make in it using JEI. One of the most amazing things you can do in Xycraft is drones. And what I'm going to show you is everything you need to know about using drones. Now, the first thing you're going to need is a programmer here and a charging station. Now, this programmer looks really, really complicated. And even when I was learning it, I thought, oh my goodness, this is a bit much. But actually, it's really, really, really simple when you know what you're doing. What I'm going to be writing here is a basic drone program that is going to work as a functioning mob farm for you. Now, these drone programs can do pretty much anything. They're actually really amazing. So the first things first is, how do we make drones? What you'll see if I type in drone is that there are a few drones. The one we're going to be predominantly looking at is the one just called drone. And this is one that you can actually program to do whatever the hell you like. If you would like something simpler, there are options. And these are going to be the guard drone, the harvesting drone, the collector drone, and the logistics drone. If we look, for example, at the guard drone, it's an airborne robot which defends an area. When deployed on an inventory, it will import an item from that inventory, like a weapon, so a sword, and attack any mobs which enter a 31 by 31 area centered on the inventory. So if I placed a chest here, and then, shift right clicked the drone onto this inventory and put a sword in here, it would basically just guard in a 31 by 31 area around that chest. And that is all there is to it with things like a guard drone. How do you actually get the guard drone going? Well, you go to a charging station, which obviously is hooked up with pressure, put in your guard drone, and it's going to fill it up with pressure, and then it's ready to go. Something else we can do with our drones, both the basic one, like I'm showing you here, a guard drone, and also the programmable ones, which are much more interesting, is upgrades. And if I click the Manage Upgrades button in the charging station, you'll notice the button goes away. It only appears when the drone is in here. You can see there's a lot of upgrades we can put into our guard drone. There's 9 slots for upgrades. I can put in a creative supply. So if you are testing your drones in creative, you could just add in this creative supply, which negates all air usage and ammunition if a minigun upgrade is installed. One thing to note with your drones, they will automatically come back to a charging station whenever they need to fill up on pressure. You don't need to worry about doing that manually. They will just come back. I think it's within an 80 block radius. They will try and find a charging station with pressure. And once they're full, they'll go back to whatever they were doing. We have speed upgrades in here, which speeds up how fast the drone will fly around. A volume upgrade, meaning how much it can carry. An armor upgrade. These are really good. It says here, I think it's 15 upgrades is equivalent to a full suit of iron armor. But there is a very small speed penalty per armor upgrade. So if you want to put in multiple, you could just stack them up in there, for example. But it has got a bit of a speed penalty. So you may want to put in some speed upgrades into your drone as well, for example. Minigun upgrade, it gives it a minigun, but you will have to put ammo in there. Gun ammo, it's called. Very cool. A standby one. When inserted, the drone will go into standby mode when idle, saving air. Ah, that's nice. Oh, yes. So basically, if you just leave them and they've got nothing to do, they will be hovering around still, taking up air pressure. With this upgrade, they won't, but full damage can happen. Having, I think, just one armor upgrade will negate that full damage, however. So as long as you've got a few little armor upgrades in there, you should be fine. They aren't very sturdy without armor upgrades. Zombies and that will kill them. When they are killed, they will drop as an item on the ground that can be re-picked up. So a few things to note there. There's an item life upgrade, meaning that you've got a higher life on your drone. A security upgrade. It can operate within fluids. With 2 upgrades, fluids around the drone will be temporarily displaced away for, around it. The drone will never willingly enter lava, regardless of security upgrades. One or more security upgrades will also provide it with protection from electrical damage, from uninsulated immersive engineering wiring, and things like that, which is really, really cool. We also have a range upgrade, meaning, of course, it can go further, and a muffler upgrade to make it quieter. So those are the upgrades we could put into our drones. For the other basic drones, we have a collector drone, which will collect items within a local area centered on wherever you deploy it. So if I shift right click it here, it will then actually pick up items within this local area here. We've got the harvesting drone. When placed on an inventory, it will pick up a hoe and replant any crops that have been harvested, and it requires a hoe to function so it can get it from that chest, etc. The main thing I said we're going to be looking at is the programmable drone. So when you make your drone, you're going to get an empty one like this. Let's start off then. Let's say I've made a drone here, and I want to program it to do a mob farm. I'm going to make another programmer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically copy the program that I have made here. So what is this program saying? Well, we use these puzzle pieces on the right to make our program. And then we put it all together. We can export it into the drone. And then using a chest nearby or your own inventory, it will actually take puzzle pieces to make it. So these are puzzle pieces here that you need in an adjacent inventory.